You spoke the word, you did exactly what you were told. You affirmed wealth, you commanded health, you declared that the door was open, and then nothing moved. The room stayed still. The opportunity fell through. The balance stayed negative, and the only thing that seemed to shift was your confidence. You began to wonder, is this working? Am I doing it wrong? Did I miss something? And here is what I must tell you now, before the next ounce of doubt sinks deeper into your soul. The law did not fail you. Your words were not wrong. The law is perfect. It always hears. It always moves. But it moves only where there is agreement. And my dear, what you said may have been right, but what you agreed to, that is what blocked your good. This is the unseen courtroom where most spiritual work collapses. People speak boldly in prayer but shrink in posture. They affirm provision with their lips but flinch when the bill arrives. They declare, I am ready, but their breath catches when love walks through the door. The conscious mind says yes, but the subconscious whispers no. And under divine law, only one voice is obeyed, the one that holds the vibration of agreement. And that voice most of the time is not the one you're using in your mirror. It's the one you've rehearsed when no one was listening. It's the one that has been trained by your family, your failures, your fears. And it is that voice, the internal signature, that tells the law whether or not to deliver what you just commanded. The law cannot override that signature. It is not moved by your willpower. It is not tricked by your affirmations. It does not honor performance. It honors agreement. And if your spoken word has not yet been married to a belief, a tone, a rhythm, and a posture that says, yes, this is mine, and I receive it by law, then the law must do what it has always done. Wait. Not punish. Not delay out of cruelty, but wait for you to come into contract with your own declaration. Now hear me. You are not wrong for declaring. You are not foolish for speaking wealth or health or joy into form. That is the first step. That is the way. But do not assume the outer sound alone has power. The law is spiritual, not theatrical. It does not hear volume. It hears resonance. It scans not for syllables, but for structure. An agreement is structure. It is not what you hope for. It is what you embody. It is not what you cry for. It is what you sign for. Every time you walk into a room, react to a challenge, touch your wallet, speak to yourself, or explain your circumstances to another, you say, I am wealthy, but the moment you press send on a payment, your shoulders slump and your heart contracts. You say, I receive love, but your tone is still trained in rejection, still hesitant, still guarded. You say, I am ready for expansion, but you brace for disappointment before you even open the email. That, my dear, is not agreement. That is contradiction. And the law will not move on contradiction. It cannot. Not because it is weak, but because it is accurate. It does not grant by emotion, it grants by record. And the record it follows is not what you say on Sunday, it's what your soul has been signing all week. Agreement is not loud, it is not fancy. It does not require you to know how or when or through whom your good will come. Agreement is simple. It is the silent, rooted yes that exists beneath your tone, behind your actions, within your body. And until that yes is present, your words, though beautiful, are not yet enforceable under law. They remain unfiled declarations, letters with no address, contracts without the second signature. And here's where most people miss the breakthrough. They think the law is ignoring them, but in truth, the law is waiting for them. It is not your enemy. It is your servant, but it can only serve what you have legally permitted. And legal permission is not a cry for help. It is a coded vibration of identity. When your tone says I am still small, but your words say I am unstoppable, the law hears only the vibration, and it delivers accordingly, not to punish you, but to honor your last active agreement. Do you see it now? You are not being tested. You are being respected. The law respects your previous word more than your current wish. It honors consistency, not desperation. And until you dissolve the old contract, the one where you still expect disappointment, where you brace for loss, where you see yourself as second tier, you will keep hitting the same invisible wall. And every affirmation will feel like it vanished into the sky. But it did not vanish. It bounced. It was returned to sender. Why? Because your signature was missing. What does agreement look like then? It looks like speaking one sentence and walking like it's done. It looks like saying I am supplied and not explaining yourself after. It looks like choosing your tone, your breath, your responses, with the awareness that the universe is listening to more than your mouth. It is listening to your rhythm, your readiness, your rituals, your rest. It is scanning for a life that matches the decree. And when it finds it, the door opens, not because you forced it, but because you finally aligned. So I say again, it is not your affirmation that was wrong. It is your agreement that was silent. And the good news is, agreement can be changed. The old can be revoked, but only if you're willing to stop repeating what was never yours and begin embodying what has always been promised. And that, my dear, is where we will begin. Not with a louder voice, but with a deeper yes. It is not enough to say the words. It is not enough to choose the most correct declaration and repeat it in the mirror. But the law does not move by syntax, it moves by structure. And the most sacred structure of all is agreement. Between the word you speak and the place it comes from. If there is no agreement, there is no delivery. And the place from which agreement flows is not the mouth. It is not the intention. It is not even the conscious mind. It is the subconscious. The subconscious is your spiritual archive. It is your invisible stenographer, recording every emotional imprint you have ever rehearsed. It remembers not only what you said, but how you said it. It stores every reaction, every tone, every flinch, and every apology as part of your lawful record. And when you speak a new decree, no matter how correct, it holds it up to what's on file. And if what's on file says, I am unworthy, I am always behind, I am not the kind of person who receives, then the subconscious does what it has been faithfully trained to do. Protect the old order. It does not disobey to hurt you, it obeys to defend you. It has no judgment. It does not weigh what is noble or good. It responds only to what has been repeated with feeling. It cannot distinguish between truth and trauma. It only follows the most rehearsed voice. And so when you suddenly say, I am wealthy, but you have spent years calling yourself broke, withholding joy, and bracing for the next wave of loss, your subconscious does not accept your new statement as law. It sees it as a threat to the existing pattern. You must understand this. Your subconscious is loyal. It is more loyal than your ambition. It is more loyal than your desire. It is even more loyal than your prayers. It is loyal to whatever you have most consistently affirmed, not with words, but with posture. With the way you finish your sentences, with the way you downplay your needs, with the way you accept less than what you are owed, just to avoid discomfort. All of that is logged. All of it is binding. And that is what the law reads. So when you say, I receive, and your body tenses, and your tone apologizes, and your eyes flinch at the offer, What do you think the law hears? Not the sentence, not the surface. It hears the contradiction, and it must respond to the agreement beneath the command. For it will never override the last order given with true belief. This is why so many spiritual declarations seem powerless, because they are not wrong, but they are unsupported. They are spoken from the mouth, but not from the rhythm of lived agreement. And when your declaration does not match your atmosphere, your energy, your movement, your breath, the subconscious sees it as false, not untrue, simply not yet yours. And if it is not yours, it cannot be enforced. That is what you must reckon with. The subconscious does not know how to pretend. It does not honor performance. It cannot be tricked into belief. It must be retrained. And retraining does not happen in inspiration. It happens in demonstration, in daily correction, in choosing not just new words, but a new inner position from which to speak them. And here lies your power. What was trained by repetition can be rewritten by repetition. The subconscious is not your enemy. It is your most devoted executor. But it only carries out what you have proven to be safe. If lack is familiar, it will enforce lack. If rejection has been rehearsed, it will seek out evidence to confirm it. If anxiety has been spiritualized as humility, it will block peace from entering, believing it is protecting you from arrogance. And it will continue doing so until you re-educate it. How do you begin? By noticing, by watching the moment after you speak a decree. Do you believe it? Does your body echo it? Does your tone carry the weight of authority? Or does something shrink somewhere inside you the moment the words leave your lips? That is your clue. The subconscious does not reject you. It reveals you. It holds up a mirror, not to shame, but to inform. If there is dissonance, the mirror will show it. Not to punish, but to give you a lawful place from which to begin again. So begin here. Not with louder affirmations, but with quieter honesty. Ask yourself, what agreement is still running in the background? What inner role have I rehearsed so well that the subconscious believes it is the only safe choice? And am I willing to dissolve it, not through denial, but through lawful correction? You cannot bypass what has been faithfully repeated, but you can override it with a new rhythm. And that rhythm is built not in force, but in fidelity. Not in effort, but in evidence. When you say, I am ready, and your next breath says, I trust, and your next step says, I receive, that is when the law recognizes the pattern. That is when your good begins to flow. Not because it is newly available, but because it is finally safe to deliver. The subconscious must know where to put the blessing. It cannot send it to a house still labeled not mine. Your job is not to make the law act. Your job is to update the internal label, the signature, the file. You do that not through shouting, but through stillness, through the grace of being consistent in your new name. This is not magic. This is mechanics, and it begins with reverence for what you've taught yourself and for what you're willing to teach anew. We will return to that place, but not as guests, as owners. And the first act of ownership is to rewrite the record, silently, lawfully, repeatedly, until the subconscious no longer tilts its head when you say, this is mine. It simply nods and moves, because it recognizes the agreement as sealed. That is the task before us, and it is holy. You have spoken the decree. You have chosen words aligned with divine truth. You have declared what is yours by spiritual law, and yet nothing arrives. The opportunity does not open. The payment does not land. The relationship does not return. And you are tempted once again to believe something is broken. But what is broken is not the law. What is broken is the alignment between your word and your way, between your outer language and your inner rhythm. The law is not confused. It obeys what is coherent. And if your voice says yes while your body, tone, breath, and response whisper no, the law follows the true vote. And the vote belongs to the vibration, not the vocabulary. This is the part most never see. They think their work is done the moment they say the affirmation, but the work does not begin at the sentence. The work begins at the breath after. What tone follows it? What posture supports it? What reaction builds upon it or cancels it? These are not minor details. These are legal markers. The law is exact. It listens not only to what you say, but to how your entire being responds to what you've said. And if the rest of you remains unconvinced, then the law, being just, refuses to enforce an order that lacks full agreement. I have seen many people affirm prosperity with great passion, only to flinch the moment they spend. I have seen them speak of abundance in the morning, then sigh with dread as the invoice appears by night. They declare wealth with their mouths, but their hearts are still apologizing for every dollar that leaves. They say, "I am divinely supplied," but still hold back generosity, still delay joy, still fearfully calculate whether there will be enough next month. That, my dear, is not agreement. That is contradiction. And contradiction always suspends delivery. You must understand, your tone is a signature. Your posture is a contract. Your patterns are the filing system of the subconscious. And while your surface words may be divine, your internal field may still be echoing an older order. Be careful. Don't ask for too much. What if it runs out? These thoughts may no longer be welcome in your mouth, but if they are still welcome in your nervous system, then the law must wait, because it cannot enter where rejection still governs. It cannot act where fear still defines the perimeter. It cannot enforce where the voice of lack still holds hidden jurisdiction. And so the conflict must be brought into light. What does it look like to say, "I receive," while your body tightens? What does it mean to declare, "I am worthy," but then dismiss the compliment, explain away the praise, or downplay the moment of honor? That is not humility. That is residual resistance. It is an echo of the old agreement, still playing in the background, still directing the subconscious to protect what once felt safer. Invisibility, delay, or self-denial. You cannot declare truth and live contradiction and expect harmony. The law does not respond to content. It responds to consistency. And if your declaration is surrounded by behaviors, tones, or internal attitudes that still reinforce limitation, then the law will serve the consistent one, not the correct one. This is why some people, even without words, live in favor. Their vibration, their posture, their internal certainty declares louder than speech. And this is why others who speak divine truth daily remain blocked, for their words are not yet backed by rhythm. Their atmosphere still leaks fear. Their inner court still carries files from the old regime. So what must be done? You must begin to align not only your statements, but your state. You must walk like the word is already enforced. You must pay like the supply is already multiplied. You must respond to praise as though it were familiar, not suspicious. You must carry yourself as one who has already received, not because you are pretending, but because you have finally revoked the old agreement that said you were unworthy of arrival. This is not about acting. This is not about performance. This is not about faking confidence. It is about coherence. It is about unifying your word, your walk, your will, and your willingness to be seen, blessed, and expanded. That is true agreement. Not in parts, but in totality. Agreement is a lifestyle, not a moment. It shows up in how you touch money, how you open your inbox, how you answer when someone asks how you're doing. It shows up in how you stand, how you breathe when the bill arrives, how you prepare when the opportunity is near. All of this is spiritual communication, and all of it is evidence. Evidence is what the subconscious obeys, not volume, not perfection, but repeated embodied proof that the new word is not just wishful, it is real. And when the subconscious is flooded with new evidence, calm where there used to be fear, openness where there used to be shrinking, certainty where there used to be scrambling, it begins to release the old file. Not immediately, but inevitably, for it always updates to the strongest rhythm. This is how you override the block, not by yelling at the law, not by repeating affirmations in panic, but by resolving the inner conflict that has been silently canceling your decree, by living as one who is no longer trying to deserve, but one who has simply agreed. Do you see now? The law was never absent, the blessing was never far, but the key was never in the speaking alone. It was in the structure beneath it. Speak once, then build a world around that word. A tone, a posture, a life that no longer apologizes for being aligned. That is how you end the contradiction. That is how the law knows agreement has been signed and delivery may begin. We will speak of that structure next. Let us be clear. The subconscious is not a rebel. It is not resisting you out of stubbornness. It is not punishing you for the years you spent believing something lesser. It is not holding your good hostage. It is obeying what it was taught to protect. And what it was taught came not through commandments, but through repetition, through atmosphere, through emotional volume, through what you practiced when you thought no law was listening. So if you wish to receive something new, you must give the subconscious something new to recognize, not just to hear, but to file, to accept, to enforce. And this cannot be done with a sentence. It must be done with a system of demonstration, of rhythmic truth, of consistent agreement between the seen and the unseen. You do not erase the old agreement by denying it. You dissolve it by replacing it. You give the subconscious so much new evidence that the old pattern begins to weaken, not because you shouted it down, but because it no longer makes sense to believe it. You once rehearsed lack without knowing it. Every time you said, "That's too much," or "I can't afford that," or "I don't deserve this yet," you laid another brick in the structure of your inner court. And you did it so consistently, so emotionally, that the subconscious accepted it as the only safe architecture to build your life upon. But what was built through practice can be disassembled through new practice. This is not mental work. It is lawful work. It requires action. Small, faithful, unshakable action. When you speak, "I am now divinely provided for," you must then move as one who truly is. You must spend, not in recklessness, but in obedience. You must circulate, not to test the law, but to confirm it. You must receive compliments without collapsing, receive help without apology, receive favor without suspicion. These are not performances. They are instructions, and every instruction, when repeated, becomes new law. Understand, the subconscious has no sense of humor. It does not register sarcasm. If you joke about being broke, it believes you. If you downplay your worth, it records it. If you whisper, "I'm not ready," it stamps that phrase as current reality. So now, you must train it otherwise. Not by shouting, not by arguing, but by giving it calm, consistent proof that something has changed. Say, "This is now my standard." Then act like it. Not once, not emotionally, but consistently until your nervous system follows, until your breath slows when you receive, until your posture no longer folds when you speak with authority, until your inner court stops looking for contradiction and begins to expect confirmation. The subconscious updates itself through rhythm, not reward, not explanation. Rhythm. Repetition is the rhythm of reformation. That is why your decree must be repeated, not with desperation, but with devotion. You are not begging for a miracle, you are installing a new program. The words must be repeated, yes, but the tone must match, and so must the gesture. If you say, "I receive," but wince when someone gives, your nervous system is canceling what your mouth declared. But if you say, "I receive," and breathe it in with your shoulders back, eyes soft, tone firm, that is a ritual, that is a signal, that is you teaching the subconscious a new definition of safety. Because make no mistake, safety is what the subconscious truly seeks. It will enforce lack if lack has always kept you safe. It will delay love if love has always meant pain. It will hold you in the hallway if the door feels too bright to walk through. Not because it hates the light, but because it believes the hallway is safer. Your job is not to fight it. Your job is to show it, gently, repeatedly, unshakably, that the door is now open and the light is no longer dangerous. And that showing begins in silence, in how you prepare your mind before you speak, in how you prepare your space before you write, in how you end the habit of speaking about what's wrong and begin the habit of reinforcing what's now right by law. You must become a steward of your atmosphere, your home, your rituals, your calendar, your phrases. Every one of them is a witness. Every time you move in a way that confirms your new identity, the subconscious updates the record, and the law begins to take notice. For it sees not only your prayer, but your proof. You once gave proof of fear, now give proof of agreement. This does not mean perform for others, it means stabilize your new normal, not in the eyes of the world, but in the silence of the unseen. Speak the decree, then live as if it is already enforced. Not to impress, but to instruct. You are no longer convincing the universe. You are training the doorkeeper within you. And remember, you are not late. You are not behind. You are not damaged because it took you years to begin. You are now awake to the contract you accidentally signed, and awake to the fact that it can be revoked, reworded, and renewed. You are not starting over, you are stepping into alignment. And once alignment is present, delivery is automatic. So begin. Not with anxiety, but with authority. Not with a script, but with a sentence you are ready to prove with posture, with silence, with movement, and with rest. Say it, and then build a life around it that makes the subconscious stop asking, "Are you sure?" and begin answering, "Yes, this is who we are now." That is how the record changes. That is how the law responds. And that is where true spiritual agreement begins. Agreement is not a phrase you memorize. It is not a line you repeat 3 times a day. It is not a mantra you chant while still shrinking in spirit. Agreement is the spiritual atmosphere you build around your identity. It is not what you say once, it is how you live always. You may think you have agreed with truth because you have written the right sentence in your journal, but the law does not scan paper. It scans posture. It scans consistency. It asks not, "What did she say today?" but "What has she proven over time?" because the subconscious cannot be moved by declarations that are not upheld by decisions, and the law will not override what you continue to contradict. When you truly agree with something, you do not need to convince yourself of it. You simply act as if it were law. You do not bargain with it. You do not apologize for it. You do not rush to explain it to others. You embody it, quietly, deeply, lawfully. And that embodiment creates the climate in which delivery becomes inevitable. You see, the law needs more than a verbal signal. It needs jurisdiction. And jurisdiction is built through behavior. You say, I am worthy, but are you still choosing relationships that deny your worth? You say, I am provided for, but do you still panic before every bill? You say, I am whole, but do you still move through your day waiting for something outside you to complete you? Agreement must reach farther than your mouth. It must touch your calendar, your tone, your walk, your spending, your silence. It must show up in the way you answer the phone, in the way you receive a compliment, in how you carry your body when no one is watching. Agreement is not theory. It is spiritual citizenship, and citizenship requires proof of residence. The law does not respond to tourists. It responds to residents. If you only visit truth when you feel strong, but return to fear when things get quiet, then fear is your legal address. And that is where the law will send its response. To live in agreement is to build a permanent dwelling in the realm of what you have spoken. Not to peek in when you feel inspired, but to stay when nothing outside you has changed. To remain in posture, even when evidence is delayed. That is where the law begins to obey without resistance, because it finds no contradiction left to challenge. Agreement is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not something you advertise. It is something you enforce in silence. It is how you breathe when the offer comes. It is how you pause instead of panic. It is how you listen without interrupting, how you hold power without shrinking. It is what your life says in between your declarations. And yes, this is why so many feel blocked, because they have not realized your lifestyle has a louder vote than your affirmation. You cannot speak abundance and live rehearsal of lack. You cannot speak expansion and embody hesitation. The law will always go with the stronger rhythm, and the stronger rhythm is not what is loudest, but what is most repeated. What you do most often is what the law calls normal, and what is normal, it must enforce. So ask yourself, what have I normalized? Is my tone still shaped by scarcity? Are my reactions still rehearsed from trauma? Is my giving still rooted in guilt? Is my receiving still filtered through fear? These questions are not to shame you. They are to locate you, because location matters. Under spiritual jurisdiction, where you speak from determines what you're authorized to receive. If you speak wealth from a place of spiritual apology, the subconscious hears, "This is not yet mine." And so the law waits, not as judgment, but as clarity. The door remains shut, not because you didn't knock, but because you knocked while still wearing the identity of someone outside. You must enter the house of your own decree. You must walk through the threshold as if the name on the door is yours. You must eat at the table as one invited, not one afraid of being seen, heard, or blessed. That is agreement. And when it becomes your lifestyle, you will find that declarations become less frequent, because your life is now the evidence. Words are for building, but once the structure stands, the house speaks for itself. And that is the goal of this work, not to need louder affirmations, but to become the quiet confirmation, to carry your word inside your walk, so that even when you say nothing, the law knows where to deliver. You do not need to earn agreement. You return to it. You do not perform it. You remember it. The truth has always been yours, but the lifestyle must be built to match it. Not through force, but through rhythm, through alignment, through the sacred art of showing up every day in the identity your soul already knew was home. You are not asking for permission. You are giving notice that the old posture has expired, that the old agreements have been revoked, and that the new law has been written, not in ink, but in tone, in structure, in stillness, and in sovereign rest. And that rest is not idleness. It is authority. You will no longer prove yourself. You will no longer defend your truth. You will no longer declare what you have not yet prepared to carry. You will simply be what the law already honors, the one who agrees, the one who stays, the one whose word no longer floats but walks. In the next part, we will bring this to completion, for when the agreement is sealed, the law does not hesitate. It acts, because what was once spoken has now become flesh. The law does not obey noise. It does not obey passion. It does not obey desperation. It obeys agreement. And if there is one thing I have said in every form, from every angle, with every breath in this teaching, it is this: your words have no authority unless they are sealed in agreement. You may speak truth, but if the rest of you has not signed for it, the law will wait. And not because it is cruel, but because it is loyal. The law follows the contract, not the cry. The decree, not the desire. And that contract is invisible, but exact. It is written not in what you say when you feel strong, but in how you walk when you feel nothing at all. It is written in how you spend when no one is watching, how you speak when money leaves your hand, how you respond when someone gives without asking, how you hold silence in the face of uncertainty. That is your agreement. And if the law detects no contradiction, it will act swiftly. But if it finds a fracture between your mouth and your nervous system, between your statement and your self-image, it will pause. Not forever, not as punishment, but until the agreement is complete. You see, heaven cannot force entry. Good cannot arrive by threat. What belongs to you must be claimed not just by the mouth but by the life, by the decision to match what you said, not once but daily. To live as if the word you gave was law. This is not performance, it is alignment. This is not willpower, it is structure. Agreement is what makes the unseen legal. Without it, the law is silent. But with it, healing comes, money moves, doors open, people appear, and timing aligns with miraculous precision. Not because the universe was waiting to reward you, but because it was waiting to recognize you as the one who no longer flinched, as the one who no longer asked for proof before taking the step, as the one who walked as if the delivery had already occurred. And this is the most sacred shift of all. When your declaration becomes so real to you, so settled, so practiced, so embodied, that you no longer need to say it out loud, because you've become it. You do not need to repeat "I am wealthy" when your tone, your rhythm, your posture, and your daily structure now say it for you. You no longer need to write it 50 times a day. You simply make choices as one who has already received. And that, my dear, is the final signature. The law responds to congruence. It listens for harmony. It obeys the one who no longer moves between identities, but has settled in the truth. And that settlement is not passive, it is active. It breathes through your yes and your no. It organizes your space. It filters your conversations. It disciplines your reactions. It makes you quiet in places you once begged and bold in places you once collapsed. It is not ego. It is agreement. Agreement is not a feeling. It is not a mood. It is a covenant between your word and your way. And when that covenant is sealed, when the subconscious recognizes no contradiction, the law does not hesitate. It fulfills. And I say again, this is not magic. This is not mystery. This is jurisdiction. It is the reason why two people can speak the same words, and only one receives. It is why one can declare wealth and stay in poverty, while another walks in quiet abundance with barely a sentence spoken. Because one still speaks from conflict, and the other lives from agreement. Agreement is the atmosphere that makes truth enforceable, and it must be cultivated. It must be protected. You cannot afford casual contradiction. You cannot afford accidental jokes that rehearse lack. You cannot afford to keep explaining away your favor just to make others comfortable. Your new identity must be guarded like a sanctuary, because it is the container through which the law delivers everything. You have said the words. Now seal them, not in performance but in pattern. Walk differently, respond differently, dress differently, choose differently. Speak less often, but with more finality. Let your tone confirm what your mouth now rarely needs to prove. You do not need to convince the universe. You need to stop contradicting the contract. Your good is not being withheld. It is waiting for the echo of your own voice to match the original decree. When the echo is clean, when the life is steady, when the alignment holds through pressure and silence and waiting, that is when the law moves. It always has. It always will. It was never confused. You are not blocked. You are being brought into integrity. So speak once, seal it, and then walk, not as one who hopes, but as one who has already received. Let your walk become the enforcement. Let your stillness become the courtroom. Let your tone become the permission. And the law, being perfect, will obey. It is written, and now it is lived.